Hi, second graders. It's Miss Dimitri. I am feeling pretty lucky because I get to read with you all for another week and we get to talk about theme. So hold on while I share my screen with you. All right, so this is week 10, day 1. This week we are going to be working on the same SOL where we are going to be identifying the theme in a fictional text. So before we begin, let's review what we learned last week. We learned that the theme is what the author wants the reader to learn. To identify the theme, good readers think and ask themselves, what does the author want me to learn from this story? Is there a lesson that I can apply to my own life? And what is the story's big idea? What message can I take from the story? So last week we read Carla's sandwich. We analyzed her character. We identified the conflict and the resolution. And all of that work helped us to find the theme, the big ideas. And those were to be kind, to be unique. And we did all of that by thinking about important events in the story. So again, this is familiar to you. Here are all examples of themes. We have friendship, family, hard work, honesty, perseverance, kindness, courage, responsibility, acceptance, being yourself, cooperation, and forgiveness. And again, those are only a few examples. So this week, we are not going to just be reading one story all week long. We are going to be looking at multiple texts. We will be identifying the themes of pictures, poems, and fictional texts. So this picture represents an image or a picture with few words. This represents a poem, and a poem is a collection of words that are used to express ideas or emotions, and oftentimes poems can rhyme. And you are familiar with what a fictional text is. A fictional text is a story that is not based off of real events. It might be realistic fiction, which means that it could happen in real life, but it didn't actually happen. So we have three reading targets. We have 3 learning targets. We are going to be doing all of these today. We're going to have a warm up where the learning target is I can analyze important events to identify the theme of an image. Image is another word for picture. Moving on to poetry, I can analyze important events to identify the theme of a poem. And then we'll have a reading response where your learning target will be I can analyze important events to identify the theme of a fictional text. So let's start with our warm-up. All right, so here we have a set of 3 images. The first image, the second image, and the third. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be analyzing these pictures. We're going to be looking at the characters and looking at their actions and thinking about how they're feeling. And then after we analyze these pictures and pick out text evidence, we're going to think to ourselves, what is the theme? What lesson can we learn from these images? So take a moment, if you want to pause the video right now to just look at these pictures and see what's going on, go ahead and do so now. But we're going to move on to analyzing them. Okay, so I'm going to kind of walk you all through my thought process when I'm trying to identify the theme and pick out important events in these pictures. So when I'm looking at the first picture, the boy looks sad and is playing alone. And I'm talking about the boy right here. He's frowning and he's watching other people play soccer. In the second picture, the girl says, Come play with us. That's interesting. I think that's an important piece of evidence here. And then in the third picture, the boy is playing and is smiling. So, how his character is feeling now is much different than in the first picture where he's frowning. He's playing with everyone and he's feeling pretty happy based on the smile that I see. So, now I need to think to myself, what is the theme? What lesson can we learn from these images? The first theme I think that describes these pictures is to include others. So this girl, she saw the boy who was alone and she decided to include him, which made him feel happy and he enjoyed playing with other people. So the lesson that I learned from this is I want to always try to include others whenever I can. If I see someone who's upset or someone who looks lonely, it's always good to include other people. So, the other theme I think that describes these pictures is to be a good friend. So, this girl, I think, represents something that good friends do. They always try to include others and to think about how other people are feeling. And she, I think, really represents what it means to be a good friend. So, those are two lessons that I learned from these images. And it's possible that you thought of something else too, which is fine. So, we just completed the first part of our lesson, which was to analyze important events to identify the theme of an image. So awesome job. Let's move on to poetry. All right, so here is our first poem. What I want us to do first is to read the poem 2 times, and then we're going to start analyzing it, picking out important text evidence to find the theme. So the first time around, I will read it. And then the second time, I would love it if you could read it with me. So this is a this is a poem by Shel Silverstein, who is one of my favorite poets. You may have read Where the Sidewalk Ends or Falling Up. Those are great books that have a collection of poems by Shel Silverstein. So let's read this poem. I'll read it first, and then I would love for you to read it with me. It's called The Voice. There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. Let's read it again together, and I want you to begin to think about what the poem is trying to express or what we can learn from it. The voice. There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. All right, I think that's a great poem. Let's try to analyze it and pick out some important details so that we can think about the theme or the lesson the lesson that we can learn from the poem. All right. So the first part of the poem I underlined is the voice inside of you, which is also the title. So I'm thinking about what is that voice? I don't understand what they're talking about here. But after rereading the poem, I think that the voice inside you is your mind and your thoughts. And it says that it whispers all day long. So you constantly are thinking, and it's sort of like a voice inside of your head. I also underline this is right for me and this is wrong. And I think this means that you know right from wrong. Each day we're constantly thinking about good choices and bad choices. And we know what is right and what is wrong. The next part that I highlighted was no teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide. I highlighted this part because I think what Shel Silverstein is trying to say is that you know what's best for you. No one else can tell you what is the best thing for you because you know yourself best. So now I have to think about the theme. Why did Shel Silverstein write this? And what lesson can I learn? So, after thinking about this and looking at the text evidence, one thing I think Shel Silverstein is trying to teach us, and one thing I think I can learn, is to do the right thing. And the next theme is to trust yourself. So, after reading, those are the lessons that I learned. I chose trust yourself because the poem is kind of telling you to listen to the voice inside of you because you know what's best for you. And even though you can seek advice from other people, like your teacher, your preacher, your parents, or your friend, really, in the end, it's up to you to trust yourself and use your judgment to do the right thing. So those are the themes that I identified from that story. Not story, poem. All right. So what we just did is we analyzed the important events or the important text evidence in a poem to identify the theme of a poem. So we are on to our last learning target, which I will explain now. Here is your reading response. The first thing I want you to do is reread The Voice by Shel Silverstein. And then I want you to think about the themes and write about a time when you had to trust yourself and you did the right thing. I want you to use 4 to 5 complete sentences and to illustrate. So over here, I have an example of how you can start your writing response. It says, I did the right thing when, or you can use, I trusted myself when. And now, since this is the final week of RPS at home, I am also going to be having daily challenges this week. So if you think that you are becoming a master of identifying theme and you want more of a challenge, I have some activities for you. So what you're going to do is click on the link in the reading response and it will bring you to a packet where I want you to read The Blue Coyote, which is a Native American fable. And I want you to complete pages 122, 123, and 126 in the packet. It's all about theme. Now, in this packet, I just want to give you a hint. Sometimes instead of saying theme, they use the word central message. So central message is the same as theme. It's just another word for it. And after you complete your reading response, you will have Finish the last learning target. So, with all of that said, we are done with today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. And tomorrow we are going to continue looking at different types of texts and identifying the theme. I'll see you next time. Thank you.